right, good afternoon, Sunset Valley families, staff members, and community members. My name is Elena Navarro. I'm your very, very proud principal, and I just want to thank you. I just want to thank everyone from the bottom of my heart for taking time out of your busy day to attend this community meeting, to just get more informed, feel like you had an opportunity to voice opinion, ask a question. I'm very thankful for Matias Segura, our amazing superintendent, and his leadership team for scheduling this in their agendas and creating this opportunity for all of us. So I'm going to transition the microphone to Christina Nguyen, who will go over our norms and some logistical things for our meeting.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm just going to kick off the meeting with a little housekeeping. So if everyone or anyone needs to go to the restroom, I'm sure many of y'all know where to go because this is your school. But if you don't, it's right out this door and around the right corner. So we'll have our agenda. We just did the principal welcome. I'll go through some of the meeting norms, some introductions, and then we'll get right to it with a little bit of an overview of what we're here to discuss. And then we have pulled some of the comment card information, and we'll go through some of the comment card questions and answers, and then we'll open it up for a larger discussion. And I do want to just start off, I know Matias may say it too, but just thank you to this community. Y'all have been so communicative and so open with us, and we really appreciate it, and I think it's going to set us up for a really strong conversation today. So these are the meeting norms, and I won't read every single thing, but I'll kind of read through the bold. So we are building the future together. This is a really hard conversation. These are really hard spaces to be in, and I think even acknowledging just that we are all working together is really important. Honoring time. So we're trying to keep it to at least a minute. We have about an hour and a half here. And so if we can just make sure to think through making sure how we can get as many people on the mic or get their questions answered as possible, that would be great. Honor each other, honor process, honor intent and impact, honor space and voice, and stay solution-oriented. And then embrace transparency and empathy. Again, really difficult conversations, and I think if we can just come to it with that empathy, it's going to be really important. Okay, that's the Spanish. So again, with the meeting purpose, we are here to answer questions and talk about those future solutions. So we will be going through some of the comment card submissions. There were quite a few, and so our team has really gone through and pulled some. Some have multiple people that have submitted them, and so we've kind of looped them into one question. And then we just want to, again, get a shared understanding of the rationale, and then gain some insights as we move forward towards that next deliverable that'll be coming out next week, and then also as we work towards that final proposal next month. And so with that, I'm going to hand it straight over to our superintendent. Here, use this one.
Use that one?
I don't know how to turn that one on. Oh, it is? Okay. You can use it.
Well, so first off, I just want to say thank you for being here this afternoon, and also want to acknowledge just how difficult this conversation is. You know, I'm someone who deeply, deeply loves our schools. And many of y'all may not know, but I'm from South Austin. I grew up just down the road. My kids went to Sunset Valley. I had my first parent-teacher conference here in this building. I walked the halls all the way through, and I just want you to know, like, this is hard. It's hard for lots of individuals in our community and also within our staff. I'm hopeful that, you know, we can have a conversation and we can talk about, you know, all the things, but I want you to know, like, I am committed to doing this the right way, no matter how difficult it is. And what we're attempting to do is to evolve as a school system and get to a place where our precious resources, and they are precious, are allocated to our students and to our school communities that need them most, and at the same time provide academic experiences for all of our students across the city of Austin. And when we talk about what that looks like, it's having strong neighborhood schools, and we can define what that is. And I want to be really honest, like we have incredible schools everywhere, but not every student is getting what they need to be academically successful. And that's not the fault of this administration or this board. It is a compounding effect of 144 years of decisions that were made before this moment. And so when we talked about what this looks like, we talked about a plan that was going to address multiple things. And this plan does that. And it's not a perfect plan, there's no such thing. But we wanted to align feeder patterns. There are parts of Austin, some in Northwest Austin that have clear feeders where the entire middle school goes to the high school. You see that at Murkison and Anderson. You see it at O'Henry and Austin High. You see it at Koritsky and Bowie. Where do you not see it? You don't see it in East Austin. You have middle schools that go to 4 and 5 high schools. Communities get broken up. PTAs can't stay together. It's incredibly disruptive, and we have never as a school system taken that on. This plan addresses that. We also have to acknowledge that there is a strain in our stability from a financial perspective. You know that we've been running a deficit budget, and we'll have conversations around, well, Matthias, like, what did you do like 2 years ago or 5 years ago? I want you to know that we, the board and myself, have been very intentional about paying for the things that align with our values and shedding the things that we know we could and still protect our schools. And we did that for the last 2 years. And we're at a point now with the disruptions at the federal level, the pressure we have from the state, we simply cannot continue without introducing real risk into our system, financial risk. And I want to be really, really clear. One of the things that causes the Texas Education Agency to act in many cases is not accountability, it's financial solvency, right? The first rating, and we can talk about that. And so this plan attempts, right, to reduce the number of empty seats we have in our school system, and that includes boundaries and consolidations. It also attempts to not overburden any one specific part of Austin. Last, I would say 20 years, there's a real argument to be made that the East Austin and Eastern Crescent really kind of took the majority of the burden when it came to any systematic improvement. And so because we're also looking at programmatic moves, in this case, wall-to-wall dual language, we're able to position programs to be successful for years to come, create access for those students, emerging bilingual students specifically who haven't had it, and ultimately do two things, right? Position the schools programmatically to be successful and not overburden any one side of the city when it comes to consolidations. The other thing that it does is we are in a real struggle right now to address accountability. So y'all know that 23, 24, and 25 accountability ratings came out within 5 months of each other, right? And yes, there's been disruptions in the systems, and yes, we've moved the system. Three or 4 years ago, we had 70% teacher retention rate. Now we're at 88%. When I first came on board, we hired 24 principals. Now we're hiring between 5 and 6 a year. The system has really responded, and we're seeing outcomes move. But unless we address these turnaround plans, and we can talk about what those are as we move forward, we risk our ability to maintain local control. And when I tell you this, it is really important for me as a leader of this organization to ensure that our trustees, the people that you elected, have the ability to continue to determine how we educate our 70,000 students here in Austin ISD. And if you look around the state, it is a real risk. It's not something I am willing to kind of diminish. I'm honest about it. We're going to own it, and we're going to take it on, and we're going to ultimately be successful. But I want you to know that this plan considers that movement as well. The last thing I'll say is there have been challenges within our transfer policies, and they're just messy, y'all. We have transfer policies that we've had to really kind of retire because they weren't compliant legally. We have some that were made in years past that have drawn students from East Austin to different parts of Austin. We have transfer policies and procedures that have over-enrolled some schools that should never been over-enrolled, right? And so we really have to take a good look at that, and this plan considers that as well. I want you to know that all of this is coming together in a very multifaceted, complex plan, but I will say that if you took any one of these things in isolation, it would not look the same. It just wouldn't, and we can talk about what that would look like. I'll cover this slide, and then I'll have Christine talk about kind of more details. But for Sunset Valley Elementary School, as y'all know, the plan includes the movement of the wall-to-wall dual language program to Odom Elementary School. Within the 78745 zip code, I know that community very, very well, and it attempts to move the access from where it currently is for emerging bilingual students to a place where we have a higher population. We know where they live, right? And we also know that it has historically been challenging for those families to get access to these schools. And when you think about where for wall-to-wall dual language programs are and the current emergent bilingual student populations, they are moving in the wrong direction and they're low. And so this plan will ultimately add more seats. And because we have to assign students who are currently assigned to Sunset Valley, we are reassigning those students to both Boone and to Cunningham, both incredible neighborhood schools. And I just want you to know that we don't look at any one school in isolation. I know there'll be questions about Jocelyn, there'll be questions around Boone and Cowan and others. We look at the region as a whole and understand that we have to think about how any one of these moves impacts the others. We'll share with you our logic and our approach. And again, it's not perfect. We are able to refine and make adjustments. But I wanted you to kind of know the thought process for how we got here and the driving factors that we wanted to make sure were considered as part of this plan. So Christine, you want to kind of take us to the next?
Yeah,
Sorry.
Thank you, Superintendent Segura. Hi, everyone. My name is Christine Steenport. I'm the Operations Officer for Austin ISD. So I'm just going to take you through a few slides, which you probably already know, but I wanted to kind of get us on the same page here. And I know that we want to have a lot of Q&A today, so I'll kind of go through these quickly so we can get to that. So as we know, as a part of this proposal, what would this mean for my school? Sunset Valley, the building would be proposed to be closed, and the neighborhood students would be reassigned to Cunningham and Boone Elementary, and that's if you are living in these new boundaries, and we'll get to what that looks like. I know Superintendent Segura just spoke a little bit about the school-wide dual language program and how that would be moving and how we're going to have district-wide choice programs. So that's something different for Austin ISD, and we'll get into that a little bit more as well. But so that this technical school program would be reassigned essentially to Odom Elementary. Next slide. So if you live in the Sunset Valley Elementary current zone, like I said before, you can apply. You can either choose to go to your zone school, or you can apply for a priority seat at the school-wide dual language program at Odom. If you're a transfer, you can return to your zone school or apply for a priority seat at the school-wide dual language program at Odom. And we have made it very, very clear that we have enough seats not only for the emergent bilingual students living in the Odom zone, but also the program students here at Sunset Valley. So I just wanted to be really clear with that as well. Next slide. I'll bring us to the boundaries. And so this is just showcasing some of the collateral documents that we had in the proposal and that proposed package. As you'll see on the left, this was the Sunset Valley boundary as it currently is. And then on the right, this would be the reassignments, if you will. So the green here is now the reassignment. If you live in this area, you would be reassigned zone to Cunningham. And then in the pink area, the hatched, if you live in this zone, you would be reassigned to Boone. And so those are kind of some of what that looks like there. Next slide. So let's get to the meat and bones of it. I'm going to pass it to Christina, and she's going to start us off on our Q&A. And so we're going to start with some comment cards and some larger themes of what we've heard from you all. And I want to echo her sentiments too. It has been an amazing feedback and organization that you all have had, and we appreciate the thoughtfulness and the thoroughness of your communication. So I just wanted to echo that as well.
Okay, and before we get into it, I'm going to put some of our trustees on the spot to welcome them and thank them for coming. So we have our board secretary, Andrew Gonzalez, and then our District 7 trustee, Dr. Kaufman. So thank you for being here. Okay, so we're going to get into the comment cards. First question, will all of Sunset Valley fit at Odom if current students stay for DL programming and other schools like Becker families also choose Odom over Sanchez? So,
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here, and it's nice to see some familiar faces from the last meeting where we were here. So my name is Yvette Cardenas, and I have the honor of supporting campuses with multilingual education and early learning. So to answer this question, and we heard Ms. Steamport say that we do have enough seats at Odom for if we just basically took all of the students that are participating in dual language at Odom Elementary and took all of the students that are participating in dual language here in Sunset Valley, we would have enough seats for both campuses. The other question is about like schools like Becker. So I do want to say also that we have a commitment to really prioritize, right, the families from Sunset Valley to be able to go into Odom. So just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, and just to put a finer point on it, we made a commitment to reduce wherever we could any disruption, and I certainly recognize, and our trustees have communicated to me clearly, that any time that you break up a community, that's a disruption. And so that is not our goal, that's not our intent. We know that this plan includes a move, and so our objective would be to, as wholly as possible, those who chose to continue together all be guaranteed a spot at Odom. But I also want to acknowledge, as based on the comment, that there's questions from other wall-to-wall dual language programs. If that was the case, you all, or those who are here at Sunset Valley, would be approved automatically, and then they would be a priority kind of below, if that makes any sense, because we want to make sure we provide the space here. Now, for the Becker transition to Sanchez Elementary School, the inverse would be true, right, where they would have perhaps the guaranteed transfer, and then if a Sunset Valley student or family wanted to go to Sanchez, they would be prioritized just right behind them. But that would be way above all the other transfers that we would be considering. So we are wanting to be very intentional. We're making adjustments. I know some of the language in here is a little softer than you probably want to hear, and that's because we're really intentional about version control. We've already been able to make adjustments on transfer language, committing to different things that weren't in the original plan. I can say that verbally that we're getting very close. I just can't say yet that it's in the plan, but I can promise you that it's very, very close, and that's the direction that we intend to go.
Okay, most of our emergent bilingual families are zoned and walk to our campus. Will they be given the transportation to Odom to ensure they can take advantage of this opportunity to move with the community? Sunset Valley is more than 2 miles from Odom, though not each family may be 2 miles away. This is a high equity priority for our campus and a way to ensure the community and strength of the program remains.
Thank you, Christina. In our original version, we did not have that included, but that is something that Superintendent Segura is alluding to. We're hearing very loud and clear that that's very important to families, and so that's some considerations that we're doing, not only just with Sunset Valley, but with other schools as well, and looking at, okay, if that can be done, right, what are the cost things associated with that? So that's something that we're still looking at, but we've heard loud and clear that that's very important to many of those communities.
Yeah, and so just to, I don't want to, just to be really precise about this, with the 4 elementary schools that are receiving wall-to-wall dual language programs, Wooten, Pickle, Sanchez, and Odom, one of the things that we are very close to being able to incorporate is committing to having transportation within that area to ensure that our emergent bilingual students have access, right? So being close is helpful, but until they have transportation, it may not be at a point where we know they'll take advantage of it. And because we're moving towards a district-wide solution, that typically wouldn't be provided. But that is an adjustment that we are heavily considering, and I think we'll be able to get there. This question seems to me as though if there's an emergent bilingual student who is outside of the receiving attendance boundary and perhaps not even living within Sunset Valley attendance boundary, what that would look like. And in that case, it would be very nuanced. I can't say for certain that we'd be able to provide transportation. That's not something we have currently in policy. I recognize the challenges that may bring, but that specific element of that question, we don't have the ability to provide transportation in that instance. Just because of kind of the cost associated with it and the fact that it may be just one or two students, but we would then look to see, okay, where does that student reside? Is there a dual language opportunity that is closer to that student, or do one of these other wall-to-wall dual language programs actually offer, access in a different way than the ODM would? So it is top of mind, and why we go through the process, the transition will matter. We'll make those adjustments and move forward.
Because ODM will be non-zoned, will all graduates then matriculate to their different middle schools, or is the district planning a dual language feeder pattern as well? How soon will we know what the plan is for that feeder? This will help ease families' concerns.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a great question that's been coming up. And again, as we've said, we are reading all the comments on the comment cards, all the feedback that's coming in. So we are looking at feeders, right? We've heard Superintendent Segura talk about feeders for other campuses. Specifically for our own zone campuses, we're also looking to establish feeders. So that is something that we're currently mapping out. And so, again, I'll just share with you, we are also looking at kind of natural feeders, right, of where a school would go to. But those are still pieces of conversation that we're having. We understand, again, it's important for continuation of program, right? So that is something that we are considering as we're having these conversations.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now I am extremely worried about my other daughter who receives special education, speech therapies, and thanks to the teachers and therapists who have helped us with the whole process, my daughter has received help since she was 2 years old. She has started school at 3, and that is a huge advantage that she has had. How can we be sure that this sense of community and support will not be affected?
So I'm going to introduce Dr. Cherry Lee, who is our Assistant Superintendent of Special Education. She's been the person who's been leading all of our work in the response to T-agreed order and really stabilizing our system. I do want to point out that the allocation of staff is not something when it comes to those individuals who are certified, whether it's diagnosticians or teachers that are certified. Those are in her purview, not in the talent and strategy purview, because sometimes there are questions around, the plan doesn't include special education staff transitioning, and that is because we place staff based on student need, and that is a different process. That is within her purview, placement of staff that support students who receive special education services, not in the same purview as Brandy Hosick, who's our talent strategy officer, who oversees all the other placement of staff. So that's one of the, I think, little clarifications I want to make before you took over the floor.
Thank you. Thank you for being here this afternoon. And so to this question, speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, dyslexia intervention, behavior supports, personal care services, which it could include nursing, will continue with the child. The child's IEP, or their individualized education program, will guide all the services and supports that student receives. So for students receiving special education that is at a campus that is going to be consolidated, once the plan is approved, we will be holding ARD meetings, which are the meetings where we determine those specialized services for students with families in the spring, so we can make any adjustments as needed. And those services will follow the child to the student's newly zoned campus. For families that are opting to stay with the dual language program or a language immersion program, we will determine if those services can be provided at that campus. There's a few specialized services that include early childhood special education and life skills service programs that are not offered at every single elementary school, right? Life skills and a full continuum of services is offered at every single middle school and high school. But life skills and early childhood special education services are not offered at every single one of our elementary schools. So there may be some unique circumstances where we are considering a centralized placement at another school for those specific services. But again, speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, behavior intervention supports, those services are provided at all of the Austin ISD campuses.
Okay, thank you. Okay. What is the plan for the transition of special education teachers? you can say it there. They're not included in the flow charts of the plans presented. And I think that's what, yeah.
So we are carefully looking at all of those staffing allocations right now, and at this time, there is no plan to reduce the number of positions for special education teachers or teaching assistants or speech pathologists. And we'll be looking very, very carefully to determine where those persons will be serving. Many of our providers, like our speech therapists and our occupational therapists, our diagnosticians, our school psychologists, are serving at several campuses now. They might not be serving just one campus. So we'll be looking very closely at the campuses and communities at where they're serving and then where there will be, but we are not planning in any reductions of staff in our special education service team at this time.
I don't understand why Jocelyn is being kept as an open campus instead of Sunset. The campus building score is much lower than Sunset. The grounds are much smaller and it's located on a dangerous street. The Sunset Valley campus benefits from a large property, ample parking nearby, and close protection from Sunset Valley PD. Plus, all roads are neighborhood roads. So we had multiple commenters with that.
Yeah, so I always get anxious when we talk about other school without the other school around. But I want you to know that, as I said before, this was a regional approach to all the moves in an effort to address the goals of the overall plan. Again, we wanted to identify ways to become more efficient. We have lots of schools that are utilized. We have transfer in rates that are very, very high, and also in an effort to stabilize programming long-term, moving programs wall-to-wall to where there are more higher numbers of emerging bilingual students. When it comes to Jocelyn, what I'll say is it really came down to the movement of the other schools. Anytime you move a school, there's going to be things that occur next to it. In this case, you have Cunningham and Boone, you have St. Elmo, you have Jocelyn. To the north, you have Galindo, Dawson. There's just a lot that occurs, and you think about, we can talk about the facility, you can talk about access. We created the rubric to identify where we had misalignments, and then we took a regional approach. The other thing I'll say is, when we identified the campuses and the programming in those campuses, we felt as though Jocelyn and the programming that is supported, and it's going to shift. I want you to know it's going to shift slightly from what it is currently. It's not going to be a zoned campus. It's going to go to an unzoned campus and be the Mandarin kind of offering to the south as Riley currently is to the north, along with Doss. And so if we would have thought about, okay, what does it look like to kind of completely transition, you would have been really struggling to create that access to that programming in South Austin. And so what I'll say is it wasn't one or the other. It was really, the complement of moves in order to try to move towards our goal of addressing all of these things simultaneously. Certainly happy to spend more time talking about different details of it, or Matthias, like, why did you pick this street or this street? We can have that conversation. But that was the overall approach. I don't know, Rachel, if there's anything else you'd like to add specifically to it. Okay. I mean, that's just I know that people want, like, why this or not that. It didn't come down to a rubric. I know when the rubric came out, there was a lot of conversations around, I'm sorry, sir, but when the rubric came out, there was conversations around, is this a consolidation list? And we said, no, it's not. What it identifies is where we have imbalances in the system, and then we went to work on a regional basis and understood that every school impacts another school. And so this is the solution, or the plan, the draft plan we arrived at for all the reasons I just mentioned, and also, others.
Okay, moving on to the next question. When are these proposed changes going to start? How many students are expected to be in each of these classrooms? And is there a legal maximum per classroom?
Thank you. I'll start with that, and then I'll pop over to my colleague, Jennifer Pace, to kind of talk about classroom capacities. So this is proposed to start in August of 2026, so the beginning of next school year. So we are really trying to work with a short timeline. We understand that a lot of school districts do this right in 2 years, and we are doing it in a year. But I think what is most important is that to ensure the timeline gives families time to plan and make decisions and make choices based off of families and your decisions in your life. So that this would be in August of 2026, and kind of to the two other questions about how many students are expected to be in each of these classrooms, we are not changing any student-teacher ratios whatsoever, and I wanted to just highlight that. And for the legal maximum, I will defer to the colleague.
Yeah, so
here.
it's 22-to-1 student-teacher ratio. That is not what we typically see in Austin ISD because students don't come in unique, compact 22 packages. It doesn't work that way. You might have 18, 19, and 23. It really depends on kind of the allocations and the principal's kind of leadership of that campus. So it does vary. You can exceed that with a variance from the Texas Education Agency. We really try not to go down that path. We seldom do it. That is available to us, but that is not part of the plan. It's something we're considering. The last thing I'll say is regarding the 26 start of the school year, I want to kind of address this because there's been conversations around, how much time is this taking, and it feels rushed, and it feels, there's a lot happening in a relatively short period of time. What I would say is that it's urgent. We started communicating on this plan in February and March. We knew that we would be here in November taking a vote, or at least I would be presenting a draft plan to our trustees for consideration. I want you to know that what's really important for us, or for me, is to make sure that we don't take away the one thing that we know our families need, and that's time to plan. You gotta have time to plan. And so when you think about where we are as a system, we are already preparing for the 26-27 school year. Enrollment is about to start. Registration is about to start in November. So that starts in November. It goes all the way through March. If the delay in vote occurs in December, then we've lost 1 out of the 4 months that I have. And then your frustration with the enrollment system and process is going to escalate. And I know how frustrating that is. I know it hasn't been perfect. But if we don't have the time to execute the plan, then I'm only going to introduce harm to our families and to our students as they move into the next campus and then continue on through their academic journey. So it's really important for me to be honest about what you lose or what we lose if we delay vote or delay action. The other thing I'll say is I am not going to ever propose or commit to a significant change in the spring semester. We've done that as an organization. Many of y'all maybe not know this, but just a couple of years ago, we made some pretty significant changes. We took 6th grade out of Mendez and Martin in April. We took International High School out of Eastside Early College High School in the spring semester. We struggled through the summer to even have a successful launch, and I would argue that it never was successful. So that's not something we would do. So for us, this timeline is appropriate. If we miss the timeline, then I would argue that opportunities would be missed and risk would be introduced. And we can talk about what those are. We can disagree or agree, but I want to be honest about how we're assessing timeline as all of this works. But I want to make sure our families have time to process, to plan, and our staff as well. We've made decisions on timeline. I would like to have our principals placed at these schools by December. I think that you all would want to know, if this plan is going forward, who the principal is. And so that's something that cannot happen until the board takes the vote. So, and the reason is because we can't commit until that action is taking place. I don't have the authority to close the school or to change boundaries. Only the board does, which is why the sequence of timing is important. If the principal isn't named in December and is named in January, then now they're 6 weeks behind hiring their staff or going through transition planning and working with their other community that they're going to be working and planning with. So to me, I just want you to know that there's a lot happening in the background. I want to make sure we can execute at a high level and support all of our families through this transition.
I would also like to know if the value of the land and potential profit from its sale or redevelopment played a role in the decision. If so, the community deserves to understand how those factors were weighed,
I'll answer that.
especially when schools with lower Rubik scores were not selected for closure.
So the answer is no. Not a single point in the process did the value of any one of these tracts of land come into play. Like, that's the honest truth. It never did. And in fact, if that was the case, you'd probably make an argument that these weren't the right ones to do when you think about it. So never part of it. We have been clear that if we are able to move forward with a vote, we'll go through a process and plan with community. We will plan with our board. We'll determine what makes sense for that community. You've seen us now at Pease Elementary School. That was a desire of us and our community and our board to actually have students still be in the building. And we did a deal with United Way, and now it's an early childhood center. right? We have housing in certain parts of AISD now to support teachers that can't otherwise afford to live in Austin. We've also looked at other solutions. So I just want you to know that was not part of it. It never came into play. It was not part of the rubric, not part of anything. We recognize that there will be a process that we'll go through. There'll be, potential revenue opportunities. We've been really clear. We're not estimating what those are, but we'll go through that process with community, not kind of separated from the local community.
Okay. Oh, hold on. Okay. What I don't understand is rezoning those of us who live south of William Cannon and west of Westgate to send our children to Boone rather than Cowan. Living west of Westgate means the fastest route to Boone would likely take many families south to Davis, approximately 500 feet from Cowan, before continuing west towards Brody Lane and another 1.5 miles to Boone. I implore the district to consider shifting Boone's eastern boundary to Longview Road so that our children may attend a school in their neighborhood with their neighbors.
Awesome. Yes, this is
Sorry.
one of.
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, hi.
I'm sorry, guys. I forgot to do introductions
You're so
earlier,
good.
so I'm just going to have all the speakers introduce themselves before they speak.
No worries. Hi, I'm Rachel French. I'm Director of Planning and the project manager for our consolidations work. This is something we are looking at. So this is a great example of exactly the kind of feedback that is so helpful right now. And so that is in the queue. We are meeting with our demographers every day, this week, nonstop, pretty much looking through these very detailed examples of just making sure that if it's a little change that only affects a few blocks, easy, right? We just have to make sure there's no what we call feathering of like it might look like a little change, but it actually then doesn't align with maybe the middle school, or it actually creates the school next door being too full or too empty. And so as long as all of those things are resolved and not an issue, then we are very much making changes. And so just thank you for that level of detail, because that is very helpful. And so if we are able to make that change, it would be reflected in the edited version that you'll get to see next week. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, another one. I strongly urge AISD to revisit boundary lines for Barton View. It's clear that our area has been uniquely carved out and reassigned in a way that does not align with our established community connections, natural geography, and daily travel patterns. We are also the only neighborhood north of Highway 290 not assigned to Austin High. In addition, Barton View appears to be the only small neighborhood reassigned to 3 entirely new schools, while most other schools are transitioning together with only one new campus.
Pretty much the same answer as last time. So thank y'all for pointing this out. We are looking at this area, and it is in the queue. We will probably look at it. We will look at it this week. And so I don't have a more definitive, yes, we can do this, because as you imagine, we have 3,000 plus comments we are looking through, but this is absolutely something we've heard, we are looking at, and if we don't make the change, we will tell you why.
Thank you. Okay, I'm curious if the district would be open to allowing the 4 school-wide 2A DL campuses to form an 1882 partnership network, sharing things like curriculum, PD, staff, family engagement, and more. I think it's important these schools report to the same principal supervisor, someone who ideally only works with these 4 campuses. A partnership would also bring in extra funding, which would offset some of the program costs and allow for that narrow span of management. And before you start, I'd love for you to also clarify for everyone what an 1882 is. In your answer.
Yeah, so an 1882 partnership was approved by the state legislature some years ago, and what it allows school districts to do is to partner with different types of schools. They can be a charter school that's in kind of good standing. That would be, I don't even going to name them, but it could be like a charter school. It could be a campus or a school system that's directly tied to a school improvement model. You might argue like Third Future would be an 1882 partnership. The partner that's currently at Mendez. So 1882s have evolved since they came into play. The access of funding and the way that they get funded and supported by the state has changed. So when I looked at this question, when I read it now, I'm not convinced that there's actually a huge opportunity for funding. It's actually, it's harder than maybe it seems. It's just to kind of create a network and then create an 1882. We wouldn't be able to do it ourselves. We would have to have a partner come in and they would be the 1882 partner. You would do a contract with them, and that's how it would occur. I will tell you that Principal Navarro and the other principals, one of the things that we did by design was ensure that they all were kind of out of the same leadership tree, for lack of a better way to describe it. I had actually had the pleasure of hiring her. She's an incredible leader and has done an incredible job. So she does actually connect very closely with the other four wall-to-wall dual language programs. I think there's opportunity on my side to strengthen and improve how we support these programs as we move forward, because we are going to be adding more seats. What I will say is adding a supervisor, an executive director to 4 schools, schools that haven't historically had the same needs as others, would bring a ratio that would be atypical. So typically, if we have schools that have not performed, maybe have accountability ratings or just other challenges, 1 to 6 ratio is what we would use. For elementary schools, just generally, like a 11 to 12 to 1, and then high schools a little bit less. And so having a 4 to 1 ratio for supervisory support would be challenging, but I will say that Yvette here as the lead over multilingual education kind of functions as that from the academic side. So I don't know if it's worth you kind of sharing your role in the organization or kind of what you'd envision, but for the 1882 partnership side, it's just not that simple. There is a lot to that, to this question, and it would take some time to get there, but I understand kind of the desire embedded within the question.
Yeah, so for this, I actually also wanted to invite Jennifer Pace. We can tag team this one. I'm excited about this question just to talk about the curriculum, right, and the professional learning that goes into this. There has been such a shift with our curriculum writing. We're using high quality instructional materials, and then also just the partnership between multilingual education and our humanities and STEM team, right? For writing very aligned curriculum that is looking at biliteracy, that's looking, just really thinking about the dual language student. So it's been such a great partnership, and that's why I wanted to have Jennifer Pace come up. She's the Assistant Superintendent of Schools, and I can't honestly say that years ago I could pass it on over to her and she could talk all about curriculum and professional learning, but she can do that now. And I just want to mention also, before I pass the baton, just the professional learning. So we engage in a lot of professional learning. There are district days, and then campus-based, we have professional learning communities where teachers work together, right, at grade levels to talk about upcoming lessons, to preview, to talk about data. So there's a lot of collaboration when it comes to the instructional pieces.
Thank you. It's great to be here this evening. And I would just add that we are very focused on professional learning for our executive directors as well, who are supporting principals and being mindful of the dual language model. They're not just in our wall-to-wall campuses. Like, we have dual language in many of our campuses. So all of our principals, supervisors are very familiar with the program and continuing to learn and be strong supports to principals. So regardless of principal, supervisor, we are all on the same page, thanks to this partnership.
Thank you.
Okay, we have two more comment card questions, and then we can open it up. How much taxpayer money was spent upgrading Sunset Valley Elementary over the summer only for AISD to announce the school is slated to close next year? How should parents have confidence in AISD when such poor planning results in the waste of taxpayer dollars in a time when the district is in such a huge deficit? Families need to know how much bond monies was spent this year on schools slated for closure and how this happened.
Thank you, and thanks for that question. I think that comes up with many of our schools because our 2022 bond was quite amazing in the fact that we were able to touch every Austin ISD school with a project, whether it was a modernization or what we call targeted projects where we're just updating, right, a new roof, an HVAC project, but more specifically is our security items. So our secure entry vestibules, our camera upgrades, other life safety things. Those are something that we're always going to do for Austin ISD. It doesn't matter how long a student needs to be there. Now, did we start consolidations when we had our bond? Absolutely not. And I think Superintendent Segura can speak to that. I think any school district never wants to be in the situation that we're facing right now. And our 2022 bond was amazing, but we still have also a compliance piece with TEA. There is a Texas School Safety Center, and it's something now that the Texas Education Agency has recently made sure that we are compliant in many school safety features, including secure entry vestibules. So that's something that we're committed to as a district, and we were in our bond when we passed it, and then the state kind of went thereafter with a compliance piece. So I don't know if you had anything to add.
Well, so I do want to add, just to be clear, as Christine said, if there's a student in our schools, we're going to do everything we can to make sure the AC is running and make sure they're saved. And that requires physical improvements. In 2019, 2020, 2021, when we were planning the 2022 bond program, we did not know the 23 legislature was not going to fund schools. We did not know the 2025 legislature was going to kind of pass off what they believed was an HB2, investment and really not really, move the needle significantly. At the time, we were running into a huge deficit of educators in the classroom. We had to make investments in our educators, which really helped us move the needle and recover from that period of disruption. So when it comes to globally, could we have known that we were going to be here? No, and that's the honest truth. I was in I was over operations at that time. I never would have thought that we'd be at this point. We would have felt as though, given the pressure in our state and the lack of funding in public education, we would have had some relief. What's exacerbated this is the disruptions at the federal level. Y'all, Title II, Title III, and Title IV funding is hitting us hard. $10 million, were frozen in a relatively short period of time, which impacted a VETS team that supports dual language. It impacted 100 of the people in Austin ISD. These are people who have given their career to supporting educators and all of our students, and then overnight, I have to manage that disruption. So no, I could not have anticipated this. That being said, we take every dollar we're spending very thoughtfully. We work out deals with the city of Austin. We construct quickly. We can construct in a way that very few can, and I hope that you've seen that in the 2017 and 2022 bond program. And if there are other questions around our ability to construct, compare us to other school districts is what I'll say. I would say that we actually do a very good job, but no, we couldn't have known, and certainly we recognize that if we could have known, maybe we would have made different decisions, but again, we did not think we would be here.
And Superintendent Segura, to add to that, we also have a community bond oversight committee. They meet monthly. We talk through every single project, where it is, the status of that, and the financials. So that's something also that we have a district community-driven committee to make sure that we are going through what we said we did for the voters. And so we'll be looking into what that looks like in the future on how those bond dollars could be reallocated in another way to follow the student, which is our goal.
Okay. Final question from comment cards. I'm deeply concerned that pre-K students seem to be left out of the plan. As we review the proposed plan, we see only kindergarten and above students would be guaranteed a spot at Odom. I urge AISD to include pre-K students in the consolidation plan to ensure that the wall-to-wall dual language model remains truly comprehensive, and that families who have invested in this program aren't left without a clear path forward.
Okay, yeah, we can tag team it. Yeah, so I just wanted to share that thank you for urging, thank you for the comment cards. We are definitely looking at pre-K, right, and that continuation of programming. So you're likely to see a change, right, in the next draft version that will go out.
The only thing I would say is that the pre-K students were included in the plan. The progression into the program based on a transfer will be clarified in our transfer policies. So my objective is to be hyper clear out of the 20 different scenarios that a student could encounter or a family could encounter through this plan. We're going to have a very clear kind of response on how that will impact transfers and what we can do to ensure that that disruption for your family is minimized to the best of our ability. But the plan had always considered pre-K for the wall-to-wall the language program. The transfers and kind of our ability to respond to those had not been kind of addressed in a direct way. So we're making that adjustment.
Okay. So that concludes the comment card. Before we get into the questions, I just want to bring your attention to kind of what's next. So today is actually the first day that Superintendent Segura has been visiting campuses. Y'all are number 2. We were at Martin this morning. We also just added a board workshop next Wednesday. So Monday there will be an online meeting that will be district-wide. There will be a East Austin focused meeting on Tuesday, the workshop on Wednesday, and then a board voting meeting on Thursday. So very busy, lots of ways to catch us. And then next Friday is when the updated plan will come out. And then that next week on November 6th is when the board will have an opportunity to discuss that updated plan and still moving towards that November 20th final date. So did you, oh, sorry. Yeah, well, is that, I think it's just that. Yes. Okay, so if y'all want to start, does anyone have any questions? And I will say we are recording this so we can share it with your community, anyone that's not here in English and Spanish. So we will be taking the mics to you, so please use a mic. I saw, you what? Yeah, I can do it. Okay, I saw you first. So I'll come to you, and then I'll kind of switch sides. So.
Hi, so you had mentioned the registration time period. It was my understanding that this was going to be delayed in this upcoming year so that we could know the actual full plan and the staffing before registration started. Is that not going to, is it still going to kick off in November?
Yeah, well, so our transfer, our registration process starts in November. I do want to be really clear, we're being very intentional given the fact that these communities are going through a different kind of out of an atypical experience with the registration. So when we release the plan, you will see kind of our milestones to be responsive to the registration process. Because of all the other schools in the system at large, we have to go in and make sure that whenever you go into the system, if you were at Sunset Valley, you would have the zone school that you could go to. If you were a transfer into Sunset Valley, and I think it's 53% here, then you would have also the opportunity to go to Odom, and so that would be part of it. So I have to improve the system to make sure that that's addressed. And so those kind of adjustments will be incorporated in it. To your point, will the entire staffing plan be complete before you register? It depends on when you register, but we will protect the backside. Like, we will give you options and outs. Let's say that you say, Matthias, based on the plan, I believe that we want to go to Odom, and you, based on the timeline we have for enrollment, you kind of select at that point, and then for whatever reason you decide that's not where you want to go. Like, we would support you kind of making that adjustment because we know it's a change in what you were expecting. So there's some details to be worked out with it. Staffing plans in general aren't really set until late spring, which is why it's so important for me to get the principal set in December. Because you start the enrollment process, registration process, but it doesn't actually end until late into February and March. So you'll have that opportunity. It shouldn't be too much of a delay.
Sorry for losing my cool earlier. So I have a couple notes here. When the first round of comments went out, I was more worried about Covington, which, well, she's gone now. But I have 2 students here, and I understand that they might not continue to go to this school, but I believe that Sunset Valley is a great place for a school. So when the rubric, which you guys put together, came out, Sunset Valley scored the best out of all the other elementary schools in the area. And the only one that it kind of like lost points on was zone was too empty. It's unfortunate that now we're in a situation where schools almost feel pitted against each other, but Joslyn is in a uniquely bad condition and in a uniquely bad spot. We could go over there right now. Sunrise is doing some good stuff, and it might move, but the homeless community is going to be over there. I've seen people defecating, exposing themselves. Maybe they're just using the restroom or whatever, having mental episodes. It's catty corner away from a gas station which sells liquor, has a big marijuana leaf on it. Cork and Brew is right there. It's like a Fox News viewer dream of what every Austin school looks like. And it looks like a jail. There's no parking. It's on a small piece of property. I'm on Sunset Valley City Council. We have a police department that is here for drop-off, for pickup. Officer Brownlow comes once a week to talk. Sorry, Sergeant Brownlow comes once a week to talk. We have a beautiful campus. The Sunset Valley City Council gives $20,000 a year to the PTA. We support the school. We want them here. When I was on the on the call earlier this last week, I think it was, Odom parents didn't even want the program moved over there. And so I completely don't understand how you take away this school from this community. Sorry, I'm going long. When it is successful and we want it and we show it with our money and our voting and everything else. I don't know. That's me.
I just didn't know if you wanted to, I can respond if you'd like. So what I would say is that there are so many schools that are being impacted that have very loving communities. I just want to be really, really clear about that. There are lots of people who love Jocelyn, just to be honest with you. But so I want to just be really, really clear that that's not, we recognize that yes, Sunset Valley, the city of Sunset Valley supports this school, and we want that type of support for every other school in the city of Austin. That's not happening right now. I'm at a point where I do not have the ability to resource every school, not just Sunset Valley necessarily, but 116 of them. And so when you think about, where any one school is, they're all going to have challenges. Right now, what we know is that, yes, there aren't enough students that live in its attendance boundary to ever fill it up. That's just the honest truth, right? That is just the truth. When you think about the program, right, so you're, 24% emergent bilingual, and it's been difficult, right, and it's moving in the wrong direction. So for sustainability purposes, to get to a 50-50 model, we have to provide access. And so I just want you to know that it was never one thing over the other. It was a complement of things that ultimately drove to this recommendation or this plan. But there are families that love Odom. They just maybe not be able to show up because they're working multiple jobs. They may not have different access. I want to be really, I know you're on, let me finish. No, I'm just telling you that every school has a different experience, a different community. And I just don't want to disparage any other school. And I feel as though this plan, we arrived at this draft plan. It is a draft plan with a process that we had built up over many months and had been formed by other large efforts, including the long-range plan, the equity assessment, the bond program, all these other things. So it didn't just start from nowhere, and this is where we are. Now we're going to take feedback, we're going to make adjustments, and we'll move forward. But I don't want anybody here to feel that I don't understand or value the immense support that Sunset Valley has from its community. That's what makes this so frustrating and why I'm so mad about it. I'm just the fact that we're here is very, it's just, I just hate that we're here as a school system. So.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. My questions are kind of combos of these two, but as a community, since we are upset about moving, why not reassure us that if our administration wants to go with us, then say, we're going to offer it to them so that we can make the decisions. It would be great. We love our administration, and we'll support you. We don't want takeover. No one wants takeover. So if we say, if you can come to us and reassure us and say, parents, we need your support, your administration gets to go with you if they choose to. Now, obviously, if they don't want to come, we're going to say, but if they want to come with us, why not reassure us?
So I want our families to know that, and your comments, your questions is a great question. And trust me, if I could tell you right now, I would string to as loud as I possibly could that you have that commitment from me to do that. I will tell you that I've met with your principal, Principal Novato. I've met with all the other principals who are going through different changes. What you want is what I want. The challenge is there's not a board vote yet, and we still have feedback we're getting from our community. So it may change, right? And the one thing I don't want to do is to create disruption and confusion when we don't have certainty in the plan. So we're in this period of time. I have principals right now, especially when it comes to the turnaround plans, where they're engaged. They want to engage. They want to start planning, okay, how are we going to support these students? How are we going to plan transition into the school year? What do you need from me? And I'm hesitant to just let them go, because if it isn't the vote, right, and we don't actually get there, then lots of people are going to be very frustrated. So we're in this moment of time where What you want and what I believe this community wants is what I would want to see achieved also. We just are not quite there yet with the board vote or with where we are in the plan, but I want you to know, like, that is one way that we can ensure stability as best we can in these transitions. I just can't share with you kind of the conversations I've had with Ms. Novato or the conversations I've had with our trustees, or just because we're just not there yet. But that is precisely what we would prefer to see happen. But again, each person will get to make their own decision. But I value our staff. I value our principals. They're incredible. I hired her. I mean, I want her to be with us. There is no doubt. And so I want you to know that we are thinking about that. I just can't quite commit because of where we are in the process.
Hi, thank you for being here, and thank you to the Sunset Valley community for being really respectful and kind and thoughtful in everything you guys have been providing. If the majority of the high-income families from Sunset Valley move to Odom, how will this impact the critical Title I funds and the community services like dentists and et cetera that the community gets and needs?
So Title I dollars, for those who may not know, they're dollars that are allocated to the school district based on our total number of students who are identified as economically disadvantaged, right? So we identify them, we get information, and what I'll tell you is 4 or 5 years ago, we were over 60% economically disadvantaged. As the city has changed, we've gotten to 56%, 55%, 54%, and we are desperately trying to stay over 50%. I will tell you the immigration laws changing has adversely impacted us. We're about 2,000 students down right now for this school year because we have immigrant families who chose not to come, and we have immigrant families who've chose to leave. And so all of those families, many of those families would have been in that kind of group of students who are identified as economic disadvantaged. We have to get over 50%. So we are, just so if you have forms and people are asking about these forms, that's what they help us do. If we get over 50%, then we get our Title I allocation, and that Title I allocation gets distributed based on this is the district's percent of students identified as economically disadvantaged by campus. 2 years ago, it was based on census tract. So you had schools that were in certain parts of town that had high transfer-in rates that were actually not economically disadvantaged from a majority of student population, but were in a census tract that was identified as having a high percent of families who were economically disadvantaged. So we've taken that over, and what we said is the money will follow the students. So now what we've done is said, okay, based on student need, any student population that exceeds 30% of the total student population that is identified as economic disadvantages get funds from AISD. We then, so moving to Odom, based on the numbers that we have, we will exceed that. So I do expect Title I dollars to be allocated to Odom. And so I think we'll be able to address that. But we're the ones that own the 30 to 40, the federal side is 30%. We actually go north of that to like 38, 40%. But the AISD sets that. The federal side sets the minimum, and then we can go above that. That's how it works. I do feel confident Odom will have Title I dollars. I also want to be really, really clear. It is highly likely with this administration and the way that the Department of Education is going that the Title I funds will move towards block grants. If you move towards block grants, it's no longer necessarily based on the number of students that you're serving, the types of student needs that you have in your school district. It's based on proportionality as an entire state. So there is going to be movement in that realm regardless. So it is something that I'm desperately trying to hang on to, but it is changing. The changes at the federal level are impactful, and that is one way that they are going to be impacted moving forward. We do expect Title II and Title III and Title IV dollars to go away at the end of next year. That's already been public, and we do expect there to be tighter controls around Title I dollars. So my goal is to get all of our schools to be at a place where we do not have to rely on funds that we know will be disrupted. And the only ones that we can really rely on are what the state gives us by way of the basic student allotment. So that's kind of how we're approaching it. I hope that's helpful, but we do believe that we'll be able to have Title I dollars allocated. And then the partnerships for wraparound services, whether it's after-school care or a pantry, all those things, we can do that independent of Title I dollars. And we do it now, independent of Title I dollars.
Okay, before we go to the next question, I do want to clarify when he said the administration, it's the federal administration that manages the title dollars.
Sorry, sir, thank you.
Thank you for being here, Superintendent Segura and officials and trustees. Thank you for being here. I just wanted to follow up on one of the first questions that you addressed. There is a school that will remain nameless that doesn't like where their wall-to-wall dual language program is moving. And as a way to hack this system that you have laid out here, the rumor is that they're going to transfer in the spring, thereby becoming legacy students for the next year and then taking away our priority seats. I want to know, is the district aware of that? And if not, can you come up with some kind of mechanism so that that doesn't happen and doesn't basically screw us all?
Yeah, so I will tell you that I'm aware of a lot of the ideas that I will say that are out there with all movements. I had not necessarily heard the spring transfer, mainly because of how our transfer policy works. Once you're out too far into the school year, transfers have to go all the way to the board. There isn't a formal process. They effectively become a hardship transfer. Those are few and far between, so there wouldn't be the opportunity to do like a mass transfer. All of those would actually effectively, under current board policy, go to the board. My team reviews them. I make a recommendation to our trustees. We talk about an executive session, and then we come out and make a vote. I would tell you that any time that there is a desire to circumvent, use the word hack, I don't know if I've used that word, but to kind of maybe do something that's not in alignment of what we're trying to do, or maybe out of alignment of our values, we need to understand that and then figure out like how can we address that. So I appreciate you sharing that with me. I had not heard that. I do think the current transfer process would limit that in many ways. But when it comes to Odom, what we talked about is because this is the school that will be receiving the program, our expectation and my expectation of the team is that those seats are protected. And then anybody that comes from another wall-to-wall language program would be after that, and then anybody outside of those would be kind of next. So I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you for that input.
Thank you for being here today, and thank you to our trustees for being here today. I have two somewhat unrelated questions.
Okay.
My first question should be a softball question. So the consolidation plan says that, and I have a pre-K4 student.
Okay.
So it says pre-K students will continue to follow current policy. Current policy for dual language programs is that if you're enrolled in the pre-K school, they will be given automatic entrance to kindergarten.
Yep.
With this transfer to Odom, I was unclear about what you said earlier. Is my pre-K4 student?
Yes, protected, yes.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, and that's where it comes back to the scenarios. There are lots, to the gentleman's point, there are lots of ideas and scenarios that we're learning that people are trying to navigate. So we're going to put extreme clarity, and to your example, we will provide a precise response, and it'll be yes.
Okay, softball question. The second one, and forgive me on this verbiage if I don't have it down correctly, but it's my understanding that Sunset Valley doesn't have certain instructional support, and that Sunset Valley has certain gaps. As we hypothetically move to Odom as a community, how is the district going to ensure that we're able to secure some of these instructional supports that we currently don't have? I think that we would all agree that Principal Navarro is an excellent principal, and that we want to set up and that we support her. If this vote happens, we support her and want her to have a strong foundation, and our community to have a strong foundation.
Yeah.
So is this something that the district has contemplated, district-wide, but specifically for Sunset
So a
Valley?
couple things. When I first came on board, it was clear there's misalignment within academics and school leadership. What was happening was there was, in some cases, good things coming out of academics, but they weren't making their way into the classroom. And some of that was because we didn't provide the professional development or support to our principals, right? They're the academic leaders in our schools. At the same time, we had a real gap. We didn't have aligned curriculum. We had some students experiencing something in one part of Austin, rent may rise by 20%. They go to a different school, a different scope and sequence, and they were just not supported in the way that we should have. So over the last 2.5 years, with Dr. Maxwell coming on board, many of y'all may not know Dr. Maxwell. She is our assistant superintendent of K-12 academics. She has completely redone all of our supports within academics. And I would argue we probably have one of the strongest academic teams that we've had in a very long time. Yvette is on her team. She may probably echo what I just said about Dr. Maxwell. She's in our schools. She's probably more visible than any assistant superintendent of academics that's ever been in Austin ISD. If there are gaps, we need to know about them. Your principal and Yvette will be the ones kind of identifying where they are. And then in the transition plan, which we're going to be very precise with, this is what I would expect to occur. And if that's something that's a gap that has to be filled, then we're going to fill it. I can't speak to specifically what those gaps are. I would need to understand that from your principal and others. But yeah, I mean, that's the goal here. I mean, right now we are fragmented. I mean, we've made some significant moves over the last 2 years, but there's still a ways to go. So yeah, and if you see something, send us a card. Say, hey, this is what I heard. And maybe it's been addressed, maybe it's not addressed, maybe it will be addressed, but it's important that we know. Seriously, it's very helpful. Christy, oh, sorry.
Thank you for being here. I'm incredibly grateful for your team and our Board of Trustees for creating these opportunities and all of the community engagement that you've done. So thank you. I just want to understand a little bit about the turnaround plan, because Odom will have one of those in place, or no?
No, so a turnaround plan, so I didn't mean to stop you. Did you want to finish the question? Was that the question?
I guess I just want to understand how you plan to elevate the academic record that Odom currently has, because we're going to be coming in with a different scenario, and I just want to continue the academic kind of excellence that we are already achieving here at Sunset Valley.
Yeah, so there are two things I would say to that. The first is, do not base every school on their letter grade. We have incredible schools doing incredible things that have, maybe they don't have an A or a B, but they have a line out the door, right, of people waiting to get in that school. And there are people right now advocating just as much as you are to protect their school, even though it has that rating. So for us, we want to have strong neighborhood schools. We want students who are just great humans that advocate for themselves, that view being bilingual as a superpower, that feel comfortable, talking to people who don't look like them. That's what we want in Austin ISD. Now, what I would say is, because the schools have letter grades that they have, it's because the system has failed. We as AISD have produced the outcomes that we see, right? That's how it's designed. And so we are desperately trying to take ownership of it, do it our way, and our way requires time. We can do it. There's other school districts around the state of Texas who have decided to do it a different way, right? We're protecting librarians, we're protecting planning time, we're protecting our curriculum. People don't realize there are school districts right now selecting curriculum that I know for a fact would not work with this community, but they're doing it because they can save $8 million. And so when it comes to turnaround plans, 2 UA and 3 UA schools are the ones that get turnaround plans. A UA is unacceptable. That's just, I didn't do that, that's what the agency did. So UA, and it's a combination of things. It can be 2 Fs, that could be 2 UAs. It could be 3 Ds and 1 F, that would be 2 UAs. Once you have 2 UAs, you are required to develop a turnaround plan. You then typically would have 1 year to plan and develop it, and then you would have the 3rd and 4th year to implement, and then ultimately get out of that accountability position by year 5. Because of the way 23, 24, and 25 came out, 24 accountability and 25 accountability are on the same timeline, which makes it a little more challenging for us. And so we have 3 UAs. That would include other schools, many of them that you know. And so for there, we have to have a different approach because we cannot get to a place where we ever get that 4th or 5th. What I'll tell you is, not that I don't necessarily believe in the accountability system in the way that others do, but I want to be honest, I want our students to be successful in any summative assessment they get, period, right? But to do it our way. In 2023, we had 30 Fs, in 24, we had 29, and in 25, we had 23. Our system is responding in a positive way. Odom does not have a turnaround plan, right? So they did have a little bit of a drop academically, and there's a variety of reasons why they may occur, but we are providing the supports. You all are going to help contribute to that, assuming that this plan moves forward. So I want you to know, like, that's kind of what you see from time to time. We are modeling that. There is no turnaround in place at this point, and I don't expect that there ever will be one at Odom, just to be really, really clear. So is that helpful? Okay, thank you.
I just do want to note that we're bumping up against time, but we started like 5 minutes late, so I am going to like go
Yeah,
over
keep
a little
going.
bit.
I'm fine. Yeah, keep
Because
going.
I've committed to at least 3 people.
Yeah, no,
So-
no, whatever's needed.
Buenas tardes, cambiando a español un momento y lo repito en inglés después.
Ok, está
Estamos
bien.
muy agradecidos de la forma que han venido a representar y verdaderamente enfrentar estos temas difíciles en la comunidad. Hemos tenido varias reuniones aquí en la escuela para tratar de involucrar y entender la perspectiva del rango diverso de perspectivas y necesidades de las familias bilingües aquí. Y hay gente que vive más allá de Oak Hill, que les han dicho, no tenemos espacio en Oak Hill, vayan a Sunset Valley. Y hay familias que han dicho, vivimos cerca de Sunset Valley, caminamos a la escuela y eso es crítico para nosotros, no confiamos en el sistema de transportación porque hemos tenido experiencias negativas. Aunque todos amamos tanto a nuestra directora, Miss Navarro, no todas las familias van a poder seguirla al nuevo programa. Así que es muy importante, como usted ha dicho, para que las familias puedan escoger, tener toda la información posible entre cuál es el plan para el programa en Joslyn comparado con Odom,
Yep.
que ahorita el plan dicta que será como el overflow para los que no caben en Odom, en la comunidad del sur de Austin que quiere seguir en educación bilingüe. Entonces, los más detalles que nos pueda compartir para el modelo educativo de las transferencias. Somos una comunidad grande a través del sur de Austin que los necesita. And real quick in English, y'all, I think we've done a lot of work within the Sunset Valley community recently to reach out to and understand the very diverse needs and perspectives of our emerging bilingual families. Some of us come from beyond the Wyatt Oak Hill. Some of us walk to school and are not comfortable or do not feel safe using AISD transportation, even if provided. So even if all of us would love to move as a community to Odom with our beloved principal and our teachers and staff, not everyone will be able to make that transition. So I'm asking for as much information and clarity on the plan for Joslyn so that families can have that information, make informed choices up front, which school or educational model will be a better fit, what's the difference between dual language and immersion specifically, and then we can really have a stronger dual language community across Southwest Austin, including whether it's in this building or Joslyn or Odom or beyond.
Yeah, great question. So the first thing I would say is we have dual language programs in 57 of our elementary schools. So this is a wall-to-wall dual language program, but there are we only have 78 elementary schools. So 58 of them have dual language programs. And so by board policy, if there are over 18 students who are emergent bilingual within a school, then we will begin to offer that, and we have done that. We committed to it. There are school districts around the state of Texas and Central Texas that have moved away from dual language. We are desperately trying to find the resources to fully fund it. So that's just who we are. So that being said, we will have, and there will continue to be lots of opportunities for dual language program in Austin ISD. Again, they're all around South Austin. Now, we understand that Sunset Valley is unique in that it's a wall-to-wall dual language program. And we certainly understand how unique that is and how beautiful it is, and we want to support it. There are lots of, there could have been ideas about going away from it, and that was never part of the conversation. We just want to make sure that it's vibrant for decades to come. That is really our core goal here. What I don't want to do is to get to a point where the number of emergent bilingual students gets down to like 10%, 9%, and then all of a sudden we're in conflict with board policy, because I want y'all to know that there are laws that have been passed the state legislature that require every educator to be certified. Now it's going to be kind of a ramp up, but I think it's K through 3 the first couple years. And so what's going to happen is if we have a dual language certified teacher and they're not in a school, in the classroom setting serving emergent bilingual students, then I'm going to have to pull them, right? Because I cannot, by law, I have to make sure that we have a certified teacher in every classroom in Austin ISD. We have over 5,000 classrooms. And so this is when we talk about urgency, that is something we haven't run into, but it's coming. The law has already changed. The certifications are limited. We're right now frantically trying to find, those educators to serve our students, and it's only going to add pressure to it. So that's something that we don't often talk about, but it's real, it's happening, and I do not want to be in a position where I have to pull programming because I don't have educators. I would prefer to stabilize the programming to ensure that I have adequate educators, and where it doesn't need to be in Austin ISD because the students aren't there, our trustees support the administration's work in acknowledging that it probably shouldn't be here. It needs to be where our emergent bilingual students are, and then wherever we can provide that opportunity, provide other families that support as well. When it comes to transportation, we transport over 20,000 students every day. And so I would really want to understand why families are not taking advantage of that. We certainly understand that there are different means that families have and different, opportunities to access schools, but we transport students, we're bigger than Cat Metro. I mean, we transport kids all day, every day to provide access. If there's something that you're seeing that you believe will be helpful to making our families more comfortable, you got to let us know, because I'm not aware of what we can do, but I can tell you I will explore it. We're committed to exploring it. So I just want to share with you those 2 points. And as we think about overflow, I don't want anybody to think that we think Joslyn is overflow. What we're trying to do is to create a complement of opportunities in South Austin, right? Maintain a wall-to-wall dual language program that'll be vibrant. Create an immersion program that also includes Mandarin to provide a South option to the North option. At the same time, provide dual language programming elsewhere in South Austin. It's everywhere. I mean, when you look at the schools that have it, there are many, many schools that have it, to give access to our families. And if I do it that way and go unzoned, we can keep more schools open. If I don't do it that way, then we're going to ultimately have to close more schools. So that's kind of the balance and why this is one multi-layered effort. Yeah, so I know enough to be she knows the precise response.
That is a great question, and there'll also be more clarification on that, right, in the new draft that comes out. So dual language programming really is looking at our native English speakers and our native speakers of a partner language, right? So the partner language would be Mandarin, Spanish, Vietnamese. We've got all 3 of those dual language programs in Austin ISD. That's pretty impressive. So it really is looking at biliteracy, right? Students are learning content in both languages, and our emergent bilingual students have the opportunity to learn language and content together, right? So it's not a separate class or a separate period. They're learning it together. In an immersion program, it follows a similar kind of design, but it really is primarily for our families and students that are native English speakers. So it's that Spanish immersion where they're not necessarily surrounded by peers that maybe speak the partner language, but that's also a false assumption because our families are very unique, right? And there could be partner language speaking in the household. But primarily these are students that are native English speakers, highly proficient in English, and families who value language learning, right? And rather than wait until middle school when you can take your Spanish 1, Spanish 2, those classes, Mandarin 1, Mandarin 2, you're also learning at elementary, right, content and language. So the main difference is it's really focused, right, in supporting the native English speaker and fully immersed in another language. The design is very similar. So there is still instruction, right, in English in the target language, but again, the design is similar to what it looks like in a dual language program. The students participating in an immersion program are non-emergent bilingual students.
And so just to be, whenever we think about location of emergent bilingual or wall-to-wall dual language, we wanted to also make sure that there was enough students to support the dual language programs that were already in place. So you'll notice that when this plan ultimately, if it does get supported and we actually see it come to fruition, we do not expect to take away any dual language offerings, right? That could easily happen if you go place a program and then all of a sudden all the dual language, emergent bilingual students go to that program. You create pressure elsewhere. Like we made it a point to place these programs at a place, in a part of town where we knew that we would have stability long term. That was helpful.
Hi. First, I just want to say I do not envy your job right now at all. So you're in a really hard position, and thank you for all the thought you've given to this whole process. I think you know, I can speak for myself, and I've talked to a number of Sunset Valley families who were frankly shocked, right, when we saw that the school would be closing. And a lot of my questions have been addressed. One of them that I was confused about the role that safety played in the conversation. And frankly, after hearing some comments here tonight, I am like flummoxed. I am more confused than I was when I came in. So a couple of things that I've heard here tonight. One of the things that I heard you say was that if there's even one student in a building, we will do everything we can to keep that student safe. And I appreciate that. And as a parent, the most basic thing I want for my children is to feel safe at school. And I think that many other parents would probably echo that. I'm not disparaging Jocelyn. I'm sure they have an incredible cultural community. I'm sure the education that happens there is wonderful. But facts we can't get away from are there are needles at times on the playground. If you spend any time looking at neighborhood forums, the amount of public indecency that happens in that area is significant. And it's not just going to the bathroom kind of stuff. It's sexual in nature. Police get called. They don't always respond. Or they don't respond quickly. APD is overburdened. We also know that's a problem. There are tons of policy problems right now. And so I guess my question is, we have this school where the police station is 0.3 miles away, 2.5 blocks, a 6-minute walk, a 2-minute drive, maybe 3 minutes with traffic. And it's also a fact, I heard you say, that we don't have enough students who are zoned in this area to fill this school. What I'm really confused about is if Jocelyn is going to become a non-zoned school, and it is factually a less safe area with a building that AISD says is not up to the same building standard as this building, then why wouldn't that non-zoned school be put here where it's much, much safer? So I would like to understand the safety component of this decision. Even if our wall-to-wall dual language program as we know it moves to Odom, why would we not have the program slated for Jocelyn here? And that doesn't even touch on the things like this school being essential to the cultural fabric of Sunset Valley, and Sunset Valley having shown up as a significant partner in ways even beyond funding. So that's my first question, which is probably a lot to unpack. But the second part of my question is, if this school does close, what happens to the building? What happens to the land? And is it at risk of becoming a giant parking lot and basically an extension of the concrete that we see next door?
So I will start with the second question first, just because no, our goal is not to add more parking anywhere in Austin. I mean, honestly. In fact, I'm trying to get rid of parking at Burger if I can. So that's not the case. Regarding what it looks like, we have a process that we'll go through. I'm not sure, I think earlier I was talking about how Pease ultimately became an early childhood center, or that we've done different things unique to the community based on the needs, but also balancing kind of the needs of the district. And there are many needs. So no, there's no desire to turn it into anything other than what the community and AISD can agree to that makes sense. Like, I've had examples where we've had these conversations and someone says, Matthias, just turn it into like a dog park. I mean, I would hope our community understands that's not something that I would be ever to take to, I would never take that to our trustees. Right? But I do want to activate spaces. I want to make sure that we recognize that there's a history, there's a vibrancy associated with this location. I hope that you've seen us, at least since I've come on board, to be really thoughtful about what that looks like. So I can't tell you what it will be or not be, because that's going to require all of us like having that conversation, and ultimately our board of trustees weighing in. So that's the process we would go through, and we do have a precedent for that and a process for it. Regarding safety, this is one that is difficult, because our number one priority is safety, but we exist to educate. There are lots of schools in Austin ISD that anybody could argue is less safe, more safe. It is a very slippery slope. I mean, I just want to be, sir, I get that. I'm just telling you that when you look at different data sets that we have in general, anybody can compare any two schools. That being said, when we talk about, all the things that played into it, wasn't just safety. It wasn't just any one of these things. It just wasn't. I'm certainly aware of the physical improvements at Jocelyn, just the way I'm aware of the improvements that have been here. I mean, I understand those things. So I just don't want, I would argue that, because I speak with Principal Challen all the time. I know that community very well as also, and they will tell me that they themselves feel that is safe. Now, what people outside that put pressure onto that area, that is a different thing. But talk to the principal, Principal Navarro, she knows, Principal Challen, there are community members there that are advocating for that school, and they understand that there are things around them, there are things all over the city that are outside of our ability to control. So I just want you to know, it never came down to a single thing. But I do want to acknowledge that if I need to produce more clarity into like how any one of these elements was addressed when it came to a specific school, we'll attempt to do that in our response. But I will tell you that as you expand attendance boundaries to add more live-in students, or you do any adjustment, you begin to get to other schools. And then all of a sudden, you could have boundaries that are wholly within other schools, and you could walk right past your school and not have to be able to go there. So we wanted to really understand the feathering effect that would occur. I mean, honestly, because of where we are and the boundary to the north with Ben White and the river, there's just not a lot when it comes to expansion. And so there are a lot of things that came into it. If I need to add clarity in the plan, I will do that. But I just want to be clear, it didn't come down to any specific thing. It was just a regional approach, and this is where we arrived in the draft plan.
Okay. I know that there are a lot of more questions, and we are unfortunately over time. So I do want to encourage everyone to submit a comment card if you haven't already. We are looking at every single one of those and are trying to incorporate any feasible ideas into the next proposal, and that will be open through October 28th. So I don't know if you want to close with anything.
I just want to say thank you. I very much appreciate how you have approached this part of the process. It's not lost on me. I mean, I'm from South Austin. I'm born and raised down the road. I love y'all's approach. Thank you. This is hard for you all. It is hard for staff also. There are lots of people in our system that also have kids in these schools. So we appreciate you. Thank you. We're making adjustments. We're making refinements. And just thank you for your time. Thank you for showing up.